think a lot of rules and a lot of norms were written at a time where the practicalities of data collection and data analysis were very different. If I think of a picture in National Geographic in the 70s of Times Square filled with people, no one in that picture had any privacy concerns because it was going to be printed, it was going to be distributed, and then it was going to go on a shelf or a box, never to be analyzed again. But today, I would take a high-resolution picture of 100,000 people in the street, and that's very easily analyzable and exists for the rest of time. It's just a different situation. And I think that that's the case with all of our data, and it's about to be the case with our mental data. Do you think we're ready for that?
I don't think we're fully ready because we don't fully understand the possibility yet. And I really don't think we have all the people in the room who need to be talking to each other.
Who is most prominently not present in these conversations that would have solutions or ask better questions?
In the brain space, the consumer.
I mean, regardless of our talk and Stephanie and me, and we are such a cool companies, I mean, the reality, and I just checked, Anna, is that today there are 13.9 thousand Reddit users of TDCS. So my device is being do-it-yourself by a community of almost 14,000. And some of the posts that I just wrote is like, I'm using this for depression. Is it working for you? Your advice, inducing euphoria, or whatever. I think that to your point, Karen, this is happening already out there. So while we are discussing, there is people doing this to themselves. So I think we need to engage them into the conversation and at least, I don't know, educate them or tell them if it's safe or not. But we cannot look the other side and say everybody should be, acting in the market. I mean, there is always, and this community is growing. Last time I checked, it was 11,000 and now it's 14,000.
Yeah, I think if you define scientific excellence as something that, and people define it different ways, but if you think about it in the sense that it has high societal impact, improves well-being, those types of things. One of the things that you can't keep ethics and public engagement separate from that. So it's really, to achieve scientific excellence, you have to have some ethics thinking in that, and you have to have public engagement. And by engagement, I don't mean the kind of one direction kind of broadcasting of what's going on, but there needs to be a space where you're also listening to the responses of the community and actually willing to change the directions you're going if the community gives you feedback that suggests that the science would benefit from it doing otherwise. So I don't think that we're very good at that. I do think actually in many ways companies are better than academic institutions in this regard because companies generally have a market research arm that at least has some dedication and a model for pivoting with some of their work, with some of the technologies they put out there. But I'm not sure that we're asking enough of those questions with a lot of the emerging tech that we have.
Do you think it's enough to survey customers, given that customers often don't understand the nature of the data that they're sharing?
That's not engagement. So engagement by definition is bidirectional. So it doesn't work. And so a lot of scientists actually fail in that. I know very prominent scientific entities who operate around a broadcasting model of scientific information versus actually one where you can't really have a good conversation about science with someone if you don't at least give them an opportunity to get up to speed so that they can ask legit, questions that are meaningful, that get at the points that they care about. And a lot of people miss that in all levels of research, and that's a really significant problem that public engagement specialists actually have identified long ago. For example, even like with vaccines or using animals in research, you're never going to get someone to change their view if they just become enlightened like you as a scientist. It's never going to happen. You have to actually be willing to meet that person where they are and understand where they're coming from. But most of our science outreach activities are not oriented on the science in that space. So true engagement is pretty important.
Can we come back to the privacy issue for a minute? I feel like there's a lot of conversation about, what neural data can reveal, but thinking about the genetic context and the genetic parallel, right? There was efforts there to think about a specific privacy harm or implication, right? And in a specific context, right? So if you can reveal propensity to have a certain disease from genetic information, what does that mean in the context of employment? And what I don't feel has been well specified in the neuroscience privacy debate is, what is it that we're afraid of? Is there something that we think that neural data is going to reveal in the near future that we are concerned about? Because if we can specify that, then we can take action. But I haven't heard a lot of very specific, unique claims, right? There's issues with regard to re-identification and data privacy generally, but that's generally a concern I have for everything I do. And I certainly don't think that's well addressed. I don't think it's well addressed for my data now. And to me, that's the big gap. It's not that I'm not concerned about privacy for those things. It's not being well done now. And so I haven't really very clearly heard, what we are concerned about that neural data can reveal and in which context.